diabolical. Like, what were we doing? We okay? I've got the script all planned out for this video, but I don't exactly have the makeup look planned. So I'm trying to think what zhuzh I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like a soft, sultry, rosy matte zhuzh, or if I'm feeling more like a glowy zhuzh, like my signature dewy bit. I haven't even done my skincare today, so we should start with that. Hey everybody, this is Darling Social, where we break down beauty history and how the modern beauty industry impacts you. I'm Lydia-Renee Darling, an actor, writer, and a former makeup artist, and you can subscribe if you want to spill more beauty tea with me every single week. I hope you like the background. I finally have this really, oh, it's this way, really adorable on-air sign that my mom got me for Christmas, and I also put a little Divoom, oh, it's so hard to do, Divoom light in the back for some ambiance, and if you don't like it, I will only be taking positive feedback at this time, so just don't tell me. Okay, so this video is probably technically cheating because it is already February and 2025 has already started, but it's a technicality, so I don't care. Again, I'm only taking positive feedback at this time, so if you care, don't tell me. Then the skincare mist I just put on, I've already had this Fenty Beauty clear lip balm on. This is from my friend Tia. Thanks, Tia. I already had the tinted one. She got me clear, and I love this. I use it every night too. It's good for like prep, I find. I don't have any work meetings today, but I do have a class. I want to look somewhat put together and not goblin. So even though it's like 2:58 and I haven't done skincare or makeup today, we're still doing it just for this class at 7. Okay, so I want to break down larger aesthetic movements or like interests that I think will pop up in 2025 in the beauty industry, and the script got really long. I wanted to break down the larger aesthetic movements first, and we'll cover beauty categories in the next video. Talking lip, cheek, complexion, if I can make the script a reasonable length, we'll also cover like fragrance and body care, hair, but I think we've got to talk about the overall landscape first. So one of my big predictions is I think Y2K resurgence is going to continue in the younger generation, basically like 30 to 33 years oldish and below, because we've already seen the 90s come back in 2024, and a lot of 90s icons have had their signature looks from that era getting uber popular across socials again. So like Monica Bellucci's one that comes to mind as a beauty icon, Naomi Campbell, but also a lot of 90s looks popping up on like current actors, celebrities like Ryan Destiny. And Y2K looks have also popped up in a lot of places. We've seen this in like nail art too, silvery decals coming back. There's also some overlap already between the cooler undertones and colors of the 90s transitioning into the 2000s anyway, so I think it's a continuation that I think makes sense to see again. I think a lot of it's rooted in nostalgia, particularly I think celebs that were in their heyday in that era, so Kristina Aguilera and Lindsay Lohan getting a lot of attention for their like, let's say makeovers for now, because that was like the most neutral, and we'll unpack it later in the video. But I think those stars getting attention again in the mid 2020s, they'll have more and more people interested in that iconic Y2K era heyday, kind of like bimbo summit fever. Honestly, I kind of just want to manifest that we all live our most Paris Hilton extra ass lives in the face of this like economic cost of living crisis turmoil, and we're fully like into recession pop of like the late 2000s as an aesthetic coping strategy. But so maybe this is less of a prediction and more of a deep desire on my part to fully dissociate. I already laminated my eyebrows at home, and already they're giving disaster. Hasn't even been that long. I literally did it a couple days ago, and I feel like they just don't look as good as when I first took off the magical tape, you know, that weird filmy stuff. I don't know what's going on there. I'm still trying to figure out what type of look I want to do, but I think I'm going to go in with like soft matte formulas, so like a blurred matte, you know. She's not a regular matte, she's a blurred matte. And my skin, since it's not cooperating, I'm going to try and do something higher coverage, which I don't usually do, but I'm going to try kind of mixing around the Naturals palette. There's the camo one, which has color correcting, and then the bronze one, which is like matte slash satin, but like for all over kind of the face. So we'll blend it with my little like acrylic slash metal palettes, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I've kept this one still in its tube, this little scalpel, although the container is broken. I don't know how I did that. Probably, I don't know, crushed it underfoot. Why don't we ever say underfoot anymore? Feels like an oversight, you know, of our culture. Is the fact that we don't use the word underfoot enough a sign of our decline? Comment down below. It's pretty close. I might need a little more green in there because I am off tone, so let's see how we go. Okay, so we're gonna go in with the green, just a little bit because it is strong. I'm gonna mix it with my finger because of the warmth makes it nice and fast. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. Um, now I don't normally do high coverage bases anymore. Like, I just don't like how it feels for every day, and I love it, and I love a dewy zhuzh. But I've also always had really bad skin. So for me, it's kind of like something I started doing during the pandemic, wearing less high coverage just to like build my confidence in terms of like accepting that I didn't have to be perfect. You know what I mean? I also hate applying with the fingers, like the sensation of stuff on my fingers, but I find that for me, and sorry, I'm like awkwardly looking up, but the teleprompter is also a mirror. I find that for me, it actually helps kind of blend in because you've got your own body heat. My birthmark here. I usually don't care to cover it, but just to make it more seamless, I'll cover it. But I think, too, for those of us in the younger generations, right? So Gen Z, younger millennials, we were kids during the financial crisis of 2008 and saw that as a time of like Lady Gaga and Kesha and not, selling your house and losing everything because life is falling apart. I think for us, the early 2000s is more of a safe haven, like an aesthetic safe haven. Whereas for those who were older, they were out of school or in the working world at that point. It was just like starring in awful and terrible and sad. So I think in terms of larger beauty trends, I think we might see K beauty and French beauty become even more desirable because tariffs are incoming. I hope to God they don't actually happen, but with Trump, he's unpredictable. That's sort of his whole thing. By the way, I usually start with like the lip because then I can match the cheek color to it, so that's why I'm doing it in that order. It's just like a personal preference thing. I'm trying to figure out which kind of lip I'm going for today. These colors are really pretty. I have 3 of these Le Fillon Rouge palettes. How do I do it like a YouTuber? There, that's better, isn't it? They're super nice. Can't figure out which color I want though. I think there will be a bigger and bigger sort of forbidden desire for foreign beauty and cosmetics if this foreign trade war does end up happening here in the United States. And of course, it'll affect everybody, but just to say, I think that's how it would affect the US market. Now, as this is recording, there's a hold on the tariffs from the US against Mexico and Canada. Even as I post this, Trump has been threatening to levy tariffs on the EU and even my other home in the UK. And I sincerely hope none of that happens. It hurts everyday people, not just here in the US, but pretty much any country that uses that supply chain. And they'll also see their prices rise for, no good reason, which is really cute. I think I'm going to use this guy for not just the cheek, but also the lip, just to bring in a little red to the lip too. But anyway, Trump is Trump. He's unpredictable. Who knows what'll end up happening. I think that if a trade war does take place, we'll probably also see the rise of even more counterfeits, foreign makeup, and desirable makeup. I think that's because the desire to consume these products will go up, but when prices go up like 20%, people will be flooded with more options on sale that are actually illegitimate products with less transparent supply lines. And counterfeit makeup already is across a huge number of places, right? Particularly talking about the American consumer. They're shopping on places like Amazon, which already have these counterfeit products. I mean, I know my mom went to get, like, I think it was a L'Oreal primer, like a Laura Geller primer, and it ended up being fake. So who knows just how much worse that can get. Okay, I'm feeling like this is looking better. Like, it's kind of reddish, mauvey, soft. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Okay, so big tone shift into something more positive. I guess it depends on how you view it, but whatever. Gooch actually talked about this, the return of the Bombshell, in one of her recent videos, and it was referenced from a Business of Fashion article. And, I gotta be honest, I think this is something people are really longing to see again. I think there's something nostalgic during this period for like the Victoria's Secret supermodel, what that was at its peak, the Victoria's Secret angels in the 90s supermodel looks, the blowouts, the big hair. And I think people have been romanticizing those because it's the past, right? And I think too, with so much of a digital sameness, like the rise of Instagram face, which will be in a future video, by the way, people want to go back to a different time because of that sameness. Now, that doesn't mean that these bombshell looks were really differentiating models from each other. They're also women that tend to have the same type of height, weight, bone structure, and I think particularly with more like celebrities taking GLP-1s just for weight loss, the desire to be thin may also be driving some of this demand for the Bombshell look to come back. Personally, I, really do enjoy seeing a lot of women do like their Victoria's Secret hair. It kind of encourages me to play with my own volume. And when I think of the actual kind of modern Bombshell makeup, and Kelly does mention this in her video as well because it was referenced in the Business of Fashion article, but I think Sabrina Carpenter is a really good example. Reddish pinky tones that are meant to feel flirtatious with, the pouty lip, the flushed cheek, and big bouncy hair. A lot of that classic Bombshell feel in the past has been like Marilyn Monroe, right? I think she's kind of like the ultimate bombshell in Western culture, and that old Hollywood glamour is what we think of as the classic bombshell. Waves and the big barrel curls that still have some body and movement, and the red lips, the lashes that appear to be so big that they cast a shadow, and people would draw the shadow underneath with eyeshadow to make the illusion come across that they were even bigger lashes. I think these new Bombshell looks we'll see in the late 2020s, because I can't believe we're in 2025 now, but the mid to late 2020s will be kind of a subtler version of that, like a mid-tone brown lip liner with a rosy pink lipstick and like a rosy cheek, something that plays up features in a very fresh way without being so out there that it couldn't fit in at, like, let's say a brunch setting. Also do have to think about the practicality for the everyday consumer when we look at trends in order to figure out what's actually going to be adopted. I think like a full-on blowout with a bright red lip and a black liner, like a black winged liner, that look that we saw in a lot of old Hollywood stars is likely just too high maintenance and out of place for a lot of settings that the average person's going to be in. I'm blending this cheek into oblivion partially for like pacing of the video, but also because it's really hard to overdo this blush, and so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't miss any like weird corners. I have trouble getting this part of my face because, when you're a makeup artist and you're doing it on other people, I found it really easy, but I can't get the same like field of vision, and I already have pretty bad astigmatism, so my depth perception's garbage. I think I'm gonna bring this up just slightly higher. So usually for me, eyes are an afterthought, which is why I tend to do them the last, because I have quite sensitive eyes, so they're probably not gonna be like the go-to thing I do in a look. From a former makeup artist to you all, you want to do them first if you know you're going to do anything that has like fallout and what have you. Then you can like clean it up and brush it away if you want, and then put on the base. I personally don't care that much about fallout. I just don't. Maybe it's because on my own face I'm lazy and I don't give a shit, but up to you, your prerogative. I'm gonna add a little bit of brow pencil, and maybe that'll make me feel better about this situation. So let's talk industry predictions from like corporations, because we have them throwing their hat into the trend ring every year, trying to show us that they're hip and with it and they know what the consumer wants. And I think talking about Pantone's color of the year and Pinterest predicts as sort of a baseline will be a good shout. So let's chat through that. So the Pantone color of the year is Mocha Mousse, which feels like a cop-out. Because people always wear brown, like it's brown, it's a neutral. And especially since the pandemic, we've seen the rise of like this clean girl neutral shade look that every like major city has women rocking, so I see a lot of city centers, this is a popular look. I don't think it's particularly unique, and it seems to be very mass adopted. So like when I was in London, and I still live there part of the year, but I just top to bottom neutrals. It's very sad. Not that there's anything wrong with neutrals, more so that I just wanted to see color and like people express themselves in a big city, because I'm from Wisconsin, so like where I'm from, Madison, is pretty artsy and you see fun outfits, and I was just sort of, I guess, feeling like I wanted to see my own Andy Sachs fantasy when I was in these bigger cities, and I feel like even when I was in Vienna, like not too long ago, it was 2018 that I was studying abroad there. Now, could I clean the brow up underneath by actually going in and like shaving or plucking? Yeah. Am I gonna do it? No. Too lazy. I just have class today, so you're gonna get where you're gonna get, okay? Now, that being said, all of that aside, like I just don't find Mocha Mousse, that specific Pantone color, to be very useful or indicative of where trends might be moving. Now, Pinterest Predicts actually has some more specific aesthetic trends that they've detailed. So some of the ones that they've called out that I think are important to chat about for the beauty industry are Cherry Coated, Aura Beauty, and Rococo Revival. So Cherry Coated has already started peeking through this year. You can see it most notably, I think, in the Glossier Black Cherry collection. And I've talked a bit about that on my Substack. And also the Real Techniques Cherry on Top collection has also come up. And so nitpicky, I know. But I don't think the Glossier Black Cherry actually looks like black cherry to me. It just looks like a regular cherry, and I get that that's nitpicky, but I was sort of like, okay, how's this different than the reddish shades you've already got across the brand, or like reddish shades in general? So I wanted to see something that had more of that purplish brown tint to it, and I felt like these were just a slightly darker cherry red. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I feel like the Real Techniques colors have more of that purplish tint to them, so they're better representations of the actual dark cherry, and they're not even called like black cherry or dark cherry, you know? I think instead of doing a full-on eye look, I'm just gonna take this like little butter bronzer contour palette thingy and just use this for eyes. I've been liking using it for eyes and then a little bit on the cheek too to kind of tie everything together. So let's try that and see how we get on. So anyway, that rant aside, Pinterest Predicts is predicting cherry in general, which I don't know how to feel about that for this year in a way, because we've already had like cherry cola lips and lip combos in the past year and year plus at this point. So I think it may die out or die down after the season. So like that's when we see the moodier berry colors. So it might come back around at the end of 2025 again. But my suspicion is that we've already hit the peak of that trend already, since cherry's been a trend for like the past year and a half, you know, 2 years maybe. A revival also feels pretty possible to me, and that's given, you know, a trend that always swing back around in some way, and I feel like we've already seen a lot of releases in the mid 2010s that had this feel. But B, I also feel like we've been seeing echoes of this in nail art over the past 2 years or so, even in makeup in subtler ways. So like the sunset blush trend, and like the jelly donut blush trend. So I'm curious if this will actually kind of migrate or translate to eyeshadow again, with how many people seem to be leaning towards one and done options versus a palette. I think maybe we'd see the aura trend hit eyeshadow looks with makeup enthusiasts, or even take off more in like aesthetic communities where they're already going in more heavily with the eyeshadow versus like mainstream. So I think it could pop up with the consumer, the everyday consumer, in more like dip-a-toe ways, with like ombre lips maybe coming back in, but subtler colors. Maybe multicolor blush looks again, like a sunset blush, but I don't know that we're gonna get the full spectrum of color and boldness of like this aura trend that we saw in like maybe 2016, 2017. Now, Rococo Revival is also something I feel like there are whispers of, but more so in packaging. We see the rise of brands like Flower Knows that use this as part of their identity. And I remember back in the day when I was in Korea, Etude House, back when they were still called Etude House, because now they're just Etude, they had little lipstick tubes in this Rococo style with a cute little bow. I think I still have mine, and I like saved it as a, you know, kind of souvenir slash to remember my time out there. And I think, you know, because we have more access to beauty trends and products across different markets, we've seen those modern Rococo styles of packaging start to enter the Western markets too. So one that kind of sticks up to me is kind of Winky Lux, actually. I think they're a little bit Rococo. I'm wondering how that'll translate to looks. And since we saw like Boyfriend Blush, you know, pop up last year, which is this lower cheek placement that I find calls back to these earlier eras of beauty, and also this sort of naturally flushed look, which I love. I love Boyfriend Blush. I think it can be flattering, and more flattering for so many different face shapes, versus making people feel like if your blush is not like literally beneath your eye, get fucked. Other than that, it'll be less literal Rococo looks makeup wise, but more so a desire to return to that kind of truly no makeup era where wearing makeup and getting caught for it meant you were gonna get stoned as a witch. That truly kind of no makeup look. We've got to segue, because I think we've reached a very unsettling point of beauty consumption and tweakments, I gotta be honest. A little dystopian too, like it's giving The Treatment, you know? Or what's it called? What's that movie called with Demi Moore? I don't know. You'll know. Correct me. I don't care. So I want to give like Sultry, but I don't want to give like Panda. And things can tip over the edge there very quickly into the Panda direction if I am not careful. I'm just going to blend this out a little now. A little bit. Yeah. I find that browns, taupes, grays, and silvers for me, as a person who's got like hooded eyes that are very dark, and lashes that are also really dark, and brows that are very dark and thick, they make sure that the eyes still pop without like overwhelming such a small amount of surface space. Because if I use actual black for my smoky eyes, I find they get really intense. We're gonna keep seeing a rise in home beauty devices, and it's been steadily growing, that rise, as a share of the market the past several years, which makes sense given the circumstances, right? Because we had the panorama times, but I think we're also going to have to deal with a lot of new and innovative technology that doesn't really have the proven efficacy behind it in terms of like science-based evidence, because of kind of the hype that these devices are getting more and more. RFK and people like that are in charge. They're going to rely more on, like, I don't know, conspiracy versus scientific evidence. And so we may see deregulation of what's already out there in the US market. I don't know. Again, it kind of depends on what happens even in the next couple of weeks here. We'll have to see. So some of these at-home devices, they still might exist, present administration aside, in sort of these like online retail loopholes that'll take a while for government to play catch up with, or catch up to, because the culture of like beauty, the beauty industry, and all of these like new products being sold on like TikTok, for example, it moves so fast. I think we'll also see the de-makeupification of makeup, which Kelly has also talked about in a recent video of hers. And I actually see this more as like leaning into the treatment side of beauty. Don't freak out. We're gonna fix it. She's very pigmented, but we're gonna be okay, all right? I'm just doing this to kind of marry this color on the lid with like the nose through to like the cheek. I'll think blushes that have like niacinamide as an active ingredient in them, even though like, why would we want that just for the cheeks? I think more and more people, they already do, but they're gonna want this like, I just woke up like this, type feeling. They're just wearing a little something. I'm wearing a little something. It's not even makeup. It's like a tinted serum. And is it still makeup? Yeah. But it's sort of like, I don't want to sound savage when I say this, but almost like an elitism thing that's like flexing how good your natural skin or hair is, right? You don't have to wear makeup. And we've seen that more, become more prevalent, this natural, no makeup, clean girl kind of adjacent aesthetic, become more prevalent during 2020 because of, 2020. But I think seeing these big celebs like some of the ones I mentioned earlier, Lindsay Lohan, Kristina Aguilera, even Megan Fox, that have definitely had work done and look, oh, Kat wants to come in. Hi, special girl. The public seems to think, oh, they look younger, like the younger them, or they're aging backwards. I think that kind of celebrity pressure and change in look will start pushing more and more people to find like untested, unproven kind of home devices and treatments, also tweakments. I think celebrities will want to keep secret and gatekeep those procedures as long as possible because it's no longer as appealing or desirable if everyone has access to them, right? So not to sound like a Kelly Gooch fan channel, but this is, and I am. Kelly, please be my friend. She seems to agree with her predictions for both last year and this year that merch will become a bigger and bigger deal for beauty brands. And I have different takes on which types of merch I think we're gonna see compared to people like Kelly. I think Jen Phelps also chatted about this in the past in her videos. I'm not for sure. I think we'll see a rise in merch for essentials. Going back in just a little bit with this pencil to help it kind of blend the way I want. Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Okay, and a little more blending, a little more. Yeah, I think that's better. Because we're in this cost of living crisis everywhere, right? And on the brink of a possible trade war / it's already happened, is happening. We may see other beauty brands sort of scramble to find other new ways to capture both new and returning customers when beauty budgets get tighter and get slashed, right? Because entertainment, beauty, cosmetics, those are some of the first things to go. So I think one big merch item that Glossier came out with that might be big this year are keychains. So technically it's not a keychain. To get people who maybe love the color of the collection, but they don't feel like they can justify all of the beauty products or maybe even one of them, to make them feel like they're buying something more practical, I think is probably a smart strategy for them. And I think that branded keychains are a pretty good move for brands since it's mainly in the bigger cities here in the US, for example, that have robust subway or public transportation, and so a lot of us will want something for our key fobs. I am quite proud of this Sailor Mars backpack keychain I copped when I was working in Japan, and now it holds my earbuds. So I think along those lines we could see more partnerships between lifestyle brands like Stanley, beauty brands like e.l.f. so the two can tap into each other's audiences. And I think Jessica DeVino did a really great job of explaining how this rise of accessorizing your Stanley, of which I do have a Barbie one I got for Christmas, cheers, is sort of a personification of objects. And I think it'll be particularly happening more and more for expensive objects. If you're connecting your lip oil to a Stanley, you might feel somehow you're getting more out of both purchases because they complement each other and ensure you're getting more use out of both objects. With that add-on, you're essentially making the Stanley a second purse. And I think we could see releases of literal purses too from makeup brands. I mean, we've seen totes, we've seen baseball caps, maybe even sunnies. I think towels would be smart to pair with someone's, you know, skincare routine from a brand. We've seen brands like Trixie Mattel's put out adorable hand mirrors, and I believe that Kimchi Beauty already has a skincare fan. So I think maybe hand mirrors, pocket mirrors, and like electric skincare fans will get bigger and bigger in the market. I think that's also a smart move because you can do a different range of price points for those mirrors and accessories. You could do something like my little Barbie NYX flip phone mirror at the drugstore, or like Violette FR has Objects of Desire, and that's more luxury and upscale. So I think that lifestyle brands, they're getting wise to this opportunity for a new market. So we might also see some weird out-of-pocket stuff, like, I don't know, like a mini silicone like scrub head you could put on your Aura ring to do your skincare. I don't know, but I feel like it's gonna get absurd, and it already has been. I feel like I have to recognize that, like, yes, I'm the biggest gourmand girly ever. I have to draw the line somewhere though, and that Valley Ranch lip balm collab, diabolical. Like, what were we doing? Are we okay? What were you on? Quaaludes? I don't know. Did that stop in the 80s? I don't know. I wasn't alive then. I'm just a young little baby. Just a young little Gen Z baby. So it seems like brands are picking up more of the nuance of doing deliciousness instead of just for shock value, like those goddamn, what was it, like Applebee's lip glosses. So I hope we'll see more collabs like the Dove and Crumble and Native and Dunkin', I believe. But they also did Native a Girl Scout cookie collab. And so I think that these food-based marketing campaigns work so well because we all gotta eat. And it's gonna be a very visceral as a form of marketing when beauty isn't an essential item and food is. So I think these marketing campaigns where you're putting beauty in close proximity with something that's a universal level of need and probably the best way to make it feel desirable, it's also very sense-based, right? So whether it's the cinnamon girl trend followed by like the Rhode peptide lip tint with like the cinnamon bun like imagery, or more and more sumptuous photo shoots for gourmands, I think we're going to see more and more of those food-themed beauty releases. Okay, so this is awkward because how do you end it? But that's the first video on the Darling Social channel. We're chatting beauty predictions by category next time, and I also have some longer form videos coming up covering tweakment culture and Western beauty standards, so subscribe if you want to get those updates. Otherwise, thanks for watching.